And he's a lawyer.
And that's the problem.
That's true.
All right, good evening, everybody. How are you?
We're good.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
Yeah? Audience participation. If it's too dull, it'll last forever. No, thanks very much. So how is everybody? Okay? There you go.
The sun
No,
is shining.
thanks for coming out.
Where in the world are we going here?
Yeah, we're moving forward. Don't you get moving forward?
Yeah, there you go.
Town hall meetings for those who haven't attended. I'll give a brief overview of some things going on. Give you some quick updates, and then really we just open up the meeting to you all to interact. I'll answer any questions I can. Try to if anything I can't answer, we'll take note of it. I'll get your name and I'll call you back with the answer. Okay? Only thing I ask is be nice and respectful of each other. That's it. Other than that, you're going to be able to ask anything you want. Okay? My slides are short, believe it or not. The board, when I have board meetings, they last a little longer, but the amount of information I have to cover is a little more in depth. And the questions get a little deeper from them. So me, I'm doing it, I can be short and sweet with you guys, and then, like I said, open it up to you. We did get some email questions, so I'll cover some of that for you as well. But we're going to talk a little bit about safety and security here in the community. We're going to talk about some of the current projects underway. We're going to talk about delinquent assessments, and then I'm going to open the floor to you guys to ask anything you want. We'll just kind of kick the tires and talk about anything that's on your mind. The top three are either questions I've gotten recently, emails I got in the last few days of things they want to see covered tonight when we talked about it. Okay. The first one we'll talk with safety and security. Detective Sergeant Leo Erisman is here with us tonight from our police force. So I figure instead of me standing up talking to you about safety and security, these are the folks that do it each and every day. So Leo offered to come out and share a few minutes with us, answer some of the questions that are coming up. Now, Leo, do you want to forward? So I got to push.
Alrighty. Thank you very much. I think I know quite a few of you. Those that don't know me, I am Detective Sergeant for the police force. I go by Leo. I've got 26 years here in Ocean Pines, and I basically handle the criminal investigations. So you have the road patrol guys, if they get calls out on criminal investigations, and then my team takes over from there. A couple things we wanted to go over that come up in the emails that we were looking at for some of the things for this current season that's coming upon us is locking your car. Probably over the past 2 summers, one of the biggest crimes that we've had reported to uniform and to criminal investigation is not car thefts, but thefts from cars. They're not coming and stealing cars out of Ocean Pines, but you have a very, very wide community, and we've had several series of crimes where people from outside of Ocean Pines have actually deliberately come to Ocean Pines, and they will take 3 or 4 guys, girls, whatever, drop them off on the end of a street, say Windjam or Sandy Hook or something like that, in the middle of the night, and they'll just walk down the street. And they just go house to house. Anything that doesn't have a motion detector outside that lights up your yard, or a car door that's open. A lot of cars are parked right along the shoulder of the road. If you have company, you have 3 or 4 cars in your driveway, that's all the space you have, so you start lining up along the road. They just walk down the road, just like they're walking their dog or whatever, and they just start pulling door handles. You'd be surprised what people leave in cars. We've had computers, laptops, iPods, iPads, weapons. We've had a couple guns actually stolen that were left in unlocked cars just sitting on the side of the road. Out of the past 2 years, I only know of 2 cars that were actually broken into where they actually smash a window or something to deliberately get into the car. And that has actually been referred back to somebody that knew something that was in that car, that there was money in that car from a business or somebody's nightly bank deposit, and it was an employee that knew it would be in there. So most of the time, it's a random pick. They just walk down the street, try a door handle. Last year, I would say we probably had over 70 cars that were actually broken into in Ocean Pines where all they did was just touch a door handle. Granted, some of those cases we've cleared up. We would arrest 3 or 4 people and find out that they did 20, 30 of them at a time. But it's very easy to prevent this just by locking your own car in your own yard. 9 times out of 10, that would cut down on probably 80%, at least 80% of what we've been involved in. Internet scams is a big thing right now. Everybody has access to internet, absolutely everywhere. Your kids have it. You have it on your phone. You have it in your house. You have it in your office. This is the best way for outside people to contact you without you actually knowing who they are. And you get into such a routine that it's normal for somebody to ask you for information on the internet. You click on a site or something and they automatically ask for your name or your address. The biggest combination that you can give somebody is your full name and your date of birth. Anything that you fill out on the internet where they ask for your full name and date of birth and or social security number, if somebody didn't send you something prior saying that we're going to ask you for this information, they just randomly ask you for that information, 9 times out of 10 it's a scam. If you've ever heard the old saying, oh, you've won the lottery, how did you win the lottery if you didn't play the lottery? It's the same thing with internet scams. How are people going to call you and offer you these prizes and things if you never entered the contest to start with? On internet scams, full name, date of birth, and social security number, that's exactly what I use to get your criminal history, to get your medical records, to get absolutely anything that I want from my databases as a police officer. So that's the same way the internet scam personnel can get your information for your bank accounts. Normally, if you have family and friends, you're on a social media network. Facebook is huge. Everybody has Facebook. Your 8, 9-year-old grandchildren or whatever, they have Facebook. The first thing they do is fill out a form to set up a profile. Well, if I'm scamming on the internet, that's the easiest place for me to go look. 9 times out of 10, what do these kids put on there? Their name and their date of birth. So you get your little notices that you've got a birthday coming up. You can put February 15th on there, but don't put the year on there. It makes it 10 times harder if you don't put the year. So just bringing it to your attention, limit the information that you're giving to the public, because it's not just your friends and family and business associates that have access to it. Remember what you're teaching your kids. Once you put it on that internet, it's there. And if you can get to it, I can get to it. Okay? The other big one with the internet scams is the phone scams. Phone scams are huge here right now. We have over 200 just in Worcester County that's been reported since January 1st. That's not counting what people just hang up on and don't even report it. That's just what's reported. The biggest one that's going on right now is you get a phone call. Hi, I'm calling in reference to your grandson. And you question it. My grandson? Which one? Johnny? Yeah, Johnny. You just gave them the name. They had no idea what your grandchildren's name were until you just give them a name to go by. And they pry and they pry until they get a little bit of information, and you're steadily giving it to them. You're giving them the information that they're trying to get. 9 times out of 10, the internet scams are being done outside of the United States, and they're filtered back through the United States. The phone scams that are going on right now, there's an app that you can get to go on your smartphone that will transfer your call to another number. So when I call your phone, I want this number to show up. So I called from 410-641-7758. Well, if you look at that number, it's going to come back to Ocean Pines Police Department. That's not where I'm calling from. I'm calling from a cell phone or a track phone or a throwaway phone. The arrests that the FBI have made on the people that are doing phone scams, they're camped out in a hotel. They'll go somewhere, set up a room. They've got 10 telephones with pieces of paper on it, so they know I called everybody from Salisbury, Maryland on this phone. So if this phone rings, it's coming back from one of the people that I called in Salisbury. If this phone rings, it's coming back to somebody that I called in Hagerstown. And that's how they scam. Again, they'll try to get any information you can. Credit card numbers, names, date of birth, family members' information, addresses, what kind of car you own. If I know you own a 78 Camaro and it's a unique car, I'm going to go on and see who restores 78 Camaros. I'm going to find out everything about you within an hour. Where you buy your car parts from, what credit card you use to pay for them with, the whole 9 yards. just trying to bring it to your attention that you are wide open for internet scams and phone scams. Once you transmit on your phone or on a laptop and it goes on the internet, it's wide open and everybody has access to it. Has anybody in here received a phone call that you think may have been a scam, or and you just hang up on them and brush it off that it's a telemarketer or something like that? There are several web pages that you can go to that are run by the FBI. Don't take it for granted. If you get one of those calls, just go to the FBI scams, just Google in FBI scams, and they will direct you to a chart page, and you can put information in there. It's no personal information. You don't have to give them your name or anything. Just tell them, I live on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, blah, blah, blah. This is the questions that they ask. This is where these profiles come from, and this is where the FBI agents and stuff that set up all these scam relays, that's how they track them and start to narrow them down. So it doesn't hurt to fill them out. I can tell you, 9 times out of 10, the local police, they'll take the information, but there's absolutely zero investigation that we can do. If you got a phone call and they said that your grandson was arrested in Puerto Rico while he was on vacation and you need to send them $3,500 right away, once you send them that money, the chances of me being able to find out where that come from, where that call come from, is almost zero, because that entire operation is shut down by the time you electrically transmit that money. So if you come to me tomorrow and say, this is what I did yesterday, the chances of me finding that or finding out where the call come from is almost zero. The ISP address from the internet where it came from is going to be gone. It no longer exists, and the phone's probably already been trashed. Okay? So just trying to bring a little bit to your attention. Remember who you're talking to. When you're on the internet, you're talking to anybody in the world that has access to the internet. When you're on the phone, it's kind of limited, but I have no way of knowing who's on the other end any more than you do. So if you don't personally know who that person is on the other end, don't give them your information. And as far as your local, same thing with your house, locking your car. Locking your car is the absolute biggest thing that Mr. Thompson and I sat and talked. What is our biggest problem? Get ready to come across us in the summertime, and it's, you get relaxed, it's nice outside, you just pull up, you leave the windows down, you went in to watch television, you fell asleep. Tomorrow morning, everything's gone out of your car. Okay? Again, very, very, very few of our theft from cars in Ocean Pines has been where somebody forcibly broke into your car. We've gone extra steps over the past couple of years. The last 2 years has been a really big push for us to put it on the web, put it on the websites, put it on the internet, put it on the television commercials that are running, all of our neighborhood watch bulletins, everything we could put out, lock your car. You can stop it a lot faster than I can. Before I go, I'll give you one little hint of a project that we have been able to get into that we will start operating tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow morning, we just received a grant for some surveillance equipment, cameras, night vision cameras and things. We've been trying for almost 2 years to become eligible for this, and we just got it. We actually have the equipment, came Friday, and they're actually coming tomorrow to hotwire it all in, where we can actually put some surveillance equipment up in town. If we know we're getting cars hit, say on Windjammer or something, we can actually go there, set cameras up. It may be a time where we come and knock on your door and say, hey, we're having trouble in your neighborhood, and we have this system. A lot of hunters use these motion cameras and stuff out in the fields, out in the woods, that they can put up their motion activated, and we can actually do nighttime surveillance. It's very dark in the pines at nighttime, as you're aware. The night cameras and stuff is something that we can remotely access, so I can actually put a camera in your yard and watch what's going on down your street, either from my office, from my car, or from my phone. So if we know there's damage being done on the golf course area at nighttime, or there's a pathway going across here, we're having cars broke into over here, but we're finding stuff out of cars over here, so we know they're cutting across the golf course at nighttime. We can actually set some surveillance stuff up. So by all means, know that we have it. It's for your benefit. If there is something going on in your neighborhood, we don't know it until you call. So please feel free to call us. Yes, ma'am.
Can I have like 3 minutes now to ask for?
Sure.
Because this just really fits in. I'm Carol Ann Ellis. I live over on 57 Brandywine in Southgate, South Ocean Pines, down the road here. And I'm glad to hear you've got these night vision cameras because we keep our CRV in the driveway because we have our other car in the garage with a bunch of junk. And anyway, we try to tell ourselves, lock the car, lock the car, lock the car. And I've read that, so many times it's good advice. And you can even, a lot of cars, you can even lock from the inside if you have a window, it's midnight, you don't want to go out, maybe you can lock it. I cannot swear that the car was locked that night, but I think it was. We reported it to the police. We got up on the morning of, this was on my birthday last week, Thursday, 14th, happy birthday. And the car wouldn't start. So we thought, the battery is dead. We did not, I admit, we did not pull up the hood at that point. We took the other car. We went up to Salisbury. My husband took me out to dinner. And the next morning, we pulled up the hood. The battery was not run down. It was gone. And it's not funny. I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny. In fact, quite frankly, I thought the police took it a little lightly, but they said we have never seen anything like this here. That it's now at Pohanka, and thank God Geico is covering it. It's $575 worth of damage because not only did they take the battery, but they cut the wires and the electrical harness and the holder, and we've been out of a car for a week because they're going to have to order parts for it and so forth. So thank God we had the insurance to cover it. I'm ordering an outside light for my my house that I will admit I haven't had lights out there. I would advise you to make sure your driveway is lighted. Also, like we have a small boat and it's sitting here, so we put the car farther out toward the road. I think that's a bad idea. Snug your car up to the garage as close as you can get it. Because if the car had been closer up to the garage door, then maybe they couldn't have gotten into it. I don't know. Maybe this is all hopeful thinking.
The motion detector lights would have come on then, but it was so far out in the driveway that it was outside of the reach of the motion detector.
It's very, very unusual. I'm not aware of very many, maybe just one or two.
Yeah, I want to know if anybody else has had anything like that happen. If you had your car vandalized that you keep outside of your house. No. Well, you're lucky.
One person over there.
I do have a question for you. Does your car have an alarm system?
It does, but apparently now I will admit I cannot absolutely tell you it was locked. I think it was, or they might have just pried it in from the hood, lifted the hood up. But yes, it does have an alarm system. And, it's ironic because I'm a night owl and I'm always up till 2 or so. I didn't hear a thing. So my guess is they came maybe like 4 o'clock in the morning or something. It's very dark there. The people next door are not there. People across the street are not there. They live in Pennsylvania. They live in Catonsville and so forth. I hope that there's somebody here from the newspapers that you will write this up. Everybody should know that this is something that could happen here. And, it's not funny. A friend of mine said, well, I hear you're living in the projects. We're not living in the projects anymore. And we have to make damn sure we're not living in the projects. If that means neighborhood watches, if that means your surveillance cameras, but I don't want this to happen to somebody else.
We don't have any other reports of actual, there's 2 separate categories. We have what we call uniform crime reports that we have to submit every 30 days. That goes to the state and into the federal government, and it's actually broken down. Is it theft? Is it burglary? Is it assault? And it's actually broken down: theft from vehicle or theft of vehicle parts. And I do those reports every month. I have to submit them, and I don't know of maybe twice in the last 5 years that we've actually had car parts stolen off of a vehicle.
I guess I'd like to know why us.
Yeah, and it could be very random. It could be somebody that was really close there, or you just happen to be the closest one when they needed something. I can't guarantee you that. I can tell you, as far as talking about your car alarms, most of you have them on your key ring. If you're in your house and you hear something outside, all you have to do is reach over. Don't leave that in the kitchen. Put it in your bedroom.
It's your panic button.
It's a panic button off your nightstand. If anything, it gives you time to get up and get dressed and get outside to turn a light on so you can go take a look, or to call the police and let them go take a look. Granted, you probably scared off who's ever there, but on a safety issue, that's exactly what you wanted to do. So if you hear something in your driveway or in your neighbor's driveway, or if you look out your window and you see somebody run across your neighbor's yard, just hit your panic button on your key ring. Don't just hang your key ring in your kitchen and go upstairs and go to bed at night. Take that key ring. Most of you have two. If you have a spare one, take it upstairs with you. Put it on your nightstand. You hear something outside, hit the button. So if your car alarm goes off and it wakes your neighbor up, you can tell them you're sorry tomorrow morning.
I was more concerned even that they left some tire irons in our car, which suggests to me that if they'd had a little bit more time, they were going to start taking the tires.
Yeah, they were not our tire irons.
Not our tire irons.
They were.
Yeah, and there again, I can't speak for every case. I can tell you, I did get that report yesterday morning when I came back because the road guys submit those all back to my house. We haven't had another one. Not just in your area, but in the entire Ocean Pines, we've not had another report of car part or accessories being taken off of a car. We may get some customized stuff where somebody's stolen a mirror or something like that to go on another car, but other than that, we've not had those kind of reports. So I too am hoping that it's an isolated incident. Any other questions? Sir?
More of a comment. I bought a lot of stuff on the internet, and like most people, I just said, all right, well, I'm just going to use my credit card. And then recently I bought something in which I couldn't use my credit card. It required me to use PayPal. I figured, well, that's a geeky thing, but all right, I'm going to do it anyway. It turns out, you give your credit card information one time to PayPal. From there on out, when you buy stuff on the internet, use your PayPal account. You don't have to give anybody else your credit card information. So it's really a kind of a safe way to do things. I mean, I never thought I'd open up a PayPal account if I was.
I can tell you in general too, not to get into a lot of detail, but PayPal is military encrypted. The information you're giving them, they use the exact same security. It comes from the U.S. government, military, and they've been passed because they had to pass federal standards because you use PayPal to ship things overseas or anywhere else that a lot of times you can't use a credit card for. So they are encrypted through safety, and it is safety issue just by using that instead of your credit card. We did have, just to expand, if I can have just another minute, we did have, it was in the paper and stuff, we did have a series of events that not necessarily was going on here, but they were being housed here, where we just arrested 4 out of a scam where they were actually using credit card readers, which is a tool that almost anybody can buy. These were mounted, sometimes they're mounted on ATM machines and things like that. These happen to be mounted on gas pumps, and they could operate them remotely. They would take this little strip, it's an electronic reader, they would put it on the gas pump, say at the 7-Eleven shortstop or something like that, and they would actually sit in the parking lot across within 100 yards in the hotel. They would get a room in a hotel and sit in the parking lot, and every time somebody come up and use that gas pump, every time they put a credit card in there, they were obtaining that card information. Okay? The easiest way to check for that is anything that you're going to put your credit card in, whether it be an ATM machine, a gas pump, or any outside machine of any sort, before you put your card in, just run your finger across the bottom. If it feels like a piece of electrical tape or something that's not made, something that's attached to the machine, it could very possibly be a reader. Banks are normally a lot more secure. They actually have personnel that check. I believe our local banks, they have a SOP where they actually check their machines 4 times a day. 4 different employees have to check their machines like 4 times a day, where they actually go out and physically examine the machine to make sure a customer that's pretending to use the machine didn't put a reader on there, and then they come back. And they also videotape. If you go to your ATM machine and you come back an hour later to that same machine, chances are we're going to pay that video a visit to see if you were coming to put an attachment or to remove something other than to just make a transaction. And that's federal standards right now. That's what they're going by. Any other questions I can help you?
I'm sorry, I came in late. Could you tell me what department you're with?
I'm right here in Ocean Pines. I'm Detective Sergeant with Ocean Pines Police Department.
Okay, in that case, I have another question.
Okay.
It's a very general question. I don't expect you to answer it generally. Does the department have a position on lights in the neighborhood?
There's lights in the
Well,
neighborhood.
you know, you just brought it up. It's very, very dark.
Mhm.
When I first moved here, found out I was the token garage and carriage lamp lady on the block. I'm paying electric bills because I like it to be a little bright, and I realize I live on a block where everybody turns every light off when they go to bed.
Mhm.
So I went over to the police department and I said, do we have any kind of neighborhood solicitation flyers or whatever that says, you know, safety depends on a little bit of light? And they said, no, we can't get involved in that. And I said, well, okay. It's just that I was curious if there's any movement afoot, since we don't have street lamps or even lamps at the corners or anything else. And darkness is such a safety issue. If there was anything that anybody has, I'm fairly new, has ever come up with that, you know, encourages people, or is there some movement afoot I'm not aware of that we live in Ocean Pines, we will turn out every light every night?
As a police department, I can tell you, we don't have an option on that. Of course, we're going to say light it up, but that comes as you as being homeowners and association members on whether you want to put the bill for lights and where lights would be. That's definitely a town issue that the police department has. I mean, we have no funding to go out and say we're going to put lights on these corners and these corners, but not this one and this one. We don't have any of that. All I can tell you is, as a safety issue from a police officer's point of view, it's always safer when you turn lights on.
I'd like to thank you for that vote of support.
You know, but as far as us being able to say, yes, we're going to put lights here, there, we don't have any. So, I think this is her.
Just a comment. The scammers are getting so low now that they're reading the obituaries.
Mm-hmm.
And they're reading obituaries, and if there's a lot of personal information in there, just as a caution, you don't want to include birth dates and full names and addresses and so forth in obituaries, because what they're doing is identity theft. These guys are sharp enough now. If they get 2 or 3 pieces of information, they go in and, as you know, search. And then for about 2 or 3 months, they just identity theft that poor deceased person.
Sure.
And the relatives then are finding out months later that these bills have been run up in this person's name, and there's little or nothing they can do about it.
That's true.
Plus, even robberies when the funeral's being held. I couldn't have believe how low some of these guys are.
We've not had a lot here in this general area, but I can tell you, especially across the bridge, there's a whole group that's exactly what they do, and they make a living at it. I mean, they actually have employees that work at funeral homes and things like that. It's been done. It definitely has been done. You're vulnerable. We're all vulnerable. I live here in the Pines. So all I can tell you is you have to protect your own. You got to remember how large Ocean Pines is too. And I'm going to put my little plug in there. As a police department, normally there's 3 of us. At any given time, at nighttime, at 10 o'clock at night, the normal manpower coverage is 3. That's huge, because every other town in Worcester County is lucky to have 2. Sometimes we're lucky if we have 2 state troopers for the entire north end of the county at any given time, and maybe 2 deputies on the south end of the county at any given time. So my chief and my lieutenant goes out of their way to make sure we have extra manpower at night. We go shorthanded during the day sometimes, so we don't have guys out there by themselves at night, because we are a large community. And you got to figure, if there's 2 of us, and one is tied up here in the office with an arrest or something, and the second one is all the way down in South Ocean Pines at Robin Hood, and you're on Windjammer and you have a prowler or something that you think you saw somebody run across your yard, I'm coming from Robin Hood or somewhere. So precaution, precaution, precaution.
could add something to this gentleman's comment, that in our church, this is sad, but we have stopped giving the last names of people on the prayer list. Instead of saying Susan Brown, let's just say Susan or Susan B or something, because then people know that those homes are likely to be empty.
Correct.
It's pretty sad that we have to live like that, but that's, if you belong to a church that's doing that, make the suggestion that they drop the last names in the bulletin or in an announcement.
As you pumped everybody up with.
If you do have any questions, there's always somebody at the police department. On the new webpage and all, shoot us an email. Or if you send it to Mr. Thompson, he forwards all that over to us. And we try to get back up with him so that he can give you an answer or pick a suggestion. So we're always open to suggestions all the time.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
Thank you. Just a note, Leo was named last year as Worcester County's child advocate as a police officer for the whole county last year with all the work he does, helping the kids. Now, just to take some of the scary stuff away, we have nearly 12,000 year-round residents. We go up to 20, 25,000 on a busy weekend during the summer. With that being said, we have per capita we are the safest community in the county. If you look at it compared to Snowville, Berlin, Pocomo, or even compared to Salisbury, we are by far the safest community. It's because of what these folks do. So don't let I know it's a scary thing to have something stolen out of your car, but overall, extremely safe, and it's because of the efforts of our police department. So don't let all the scary stuff put you down. Let's talk about, I'm going to cover a couple more upbeat things, a couple of the projects that are going on right now. The yacht club, including the pool, golf course, and the road resurfacing. We'll talk about the yacht club first. We had our groundbreaking last week. For those that attended, we think it was 80 to 85. We couldn't count because there were so many people meandering in and out, which was great. And it was a little chilly, so people kept going inside to warm up, although we were only outside for 20, 25 minutes. It got a little cool with the wind blowing. But very, very excited about it. The project's finally getting underway. Some updates. The silt fence starts going in for the pool side tomorrow. Hopefully by Friday, we'll start to see the construction fence go up. And then by Monday or Tuesday, we'll start to see demolition on the pool side of the building. So that's the schedule right now for the pool. So we're very, very excited about that. I got that update about 4:30 this afternoon. Called Harkins and Heritage to see where they were with all that. So we're excited on that particular project. We'll talk a little bit about golf. This is some of the work for anybody who hasn't been out there to see the golf course with the work going on. Some pretty significant work that's been going on out on the golf course the last year and a half, leading up to how beautiful the holes are starting to turn out now at the end. A lot of people have yacht club and golf are the two where I get a lot of phone calls, a lot of questioning about we're spending too much money, we're wasting our money. Over and over we've said we're fixing the product. For years we've had failing product in both of those areas. This year will be the first year, and this one I'm very, very excited about, that I think both products, both the yacht club and the pool, golf course will be in very, very good condition. Some exciting things as we lead into the early part of the season for us with golf. We're going to have in May, the week of the 19th, Mr. Billy Casper is actually going to come back and do another visit. If golfers know that name, he won a couple national titles. Very, very, I'm a non-golfer, but when I got to meet him last year, or I guess a year and a half ago when he was down last, it was phenomenal. What a class act he is, and when you listen to his story and his 16 kids, of which 8 are adopted, and if you read his book, phenomenal man and phenomenal thing he's done with the company, but certainly representing golf. So very, very excited to have him back down and visiting with us. June, we're going to have a Pro-Am, and it's June 23rd, 24th. I can't remember the exact date, but we're going to have a Pro-Am, and that's basically going to cover Maryland, Delaware, and the Virginias, and professionals, golfers, not Tiger Woods. And I want to say Tiger Woods is coming after you told me pro, but the pros at the courses in the region will be coming down and they'll either be bringing a guest or paired up with our membership, our residents that want to golf in it. So we're very, very excited. So we have two back-to-back great ways to kick off our season with our new greens, our redone holes 11 and 12, the drainage. So we have a lot of very, very positive energy. The other thing that's real positive as we round the corner for the yacht club this year, those who may not know all the details, David McLaughlin joined us last year, and despite being a New Yorker, he's not a bad guy. And I say that nicely. As a Redskin fan, he's a Giants fan, so we glanced right off the get. I know a couple other New Yorkers. I'm not saying it, but David was thrown into it, came in right in Memorial Day last year, so the team was already set. Basically, the menus were pretty much set. The kitchen was set. He kind of walked into it and just kind of juggled to keep it balanced last year, to include working front end and back end of the organization. Well, this year, after the season finished up and we made some changes, he has focused his energy in the last 2 or 3 months helping with the new yacht club facility, looking at the facility, looking at some of the needs we're going to have moving forward, helping us do some game planning, looking at personnel numbers, all the things that went into the budget for the new yacht club, as well as working on training manuals, working on menus, working on staff, front-end staff type of requirements we're going to have this year to improve the service and the consistency of the service. In addition to that, for the back end, those that don't know or haven't heard yet, Paul Suplee is a recognized name in the area. Is a very, very good chef. Paul has property here in Ocean Pines. He taught for Worcester County School. In addition to being a well-known chef in the area, he taught for Worcester County Schools as their culinary arts senior person. And last year he went to Warwick Tech as their culinary arts expert there. So he's now teaching at Warwick Tech. Well, we have him for the summer. So we're very, very excited about that. Paul has a right-hand sous chef that he's brought in, so the combination of those two are going to make it very, very powerful for the back end of the kitchen, the kitchen side of the house this year. And we're already seeing some benefits from that with some of the menu selections. Paul's very, very big into making things as opposed to buying them off the shelf. So making the dressings and the sautés and all the fancy stuff to go with it. I think Bob and Paul on the back end are going to make a huge difference. So between David on the front with the service and focusing on consistency, and Paul and Bob in the back, I think we're really lined up to have one of our best summers ever. The other thing that's going to be real nice for us is we're ahead of it this year. As we go through, we'll end up closing down and at the first weekend of September we'll get through Labor Day, and then we close down for the demolition of the existing club. We'll have 3 or 4 months, and then we'll open up in the new club. So we've got a lot of real positives. We got real solid schedule ahead of us, and I think from an association standpoint, for the first time in a number of years, we've got a real solid look at 2 of our biggest areas where we typically haven't had favorable earnings or favorable revenues against the expenses. I think we're stacked up real good this year between good product at the golf course, between John Malinowski being our new golf pro, between the new events we have scheduled coming up, and then if you look at the yacht club between David on the front end and Paul on the back, I think we're finally setting in a spot where we can see a real difference this year in both of those. And as you all know, they're kind of the 2 that have driven the most losses year after year after year. So real excited about that. The last piece of that puzzle are aquatics. Last month we saw some very good improvement, and this month even further. The biggest thing we've been lagging, we made a very big change in the way we approached our aquatics training, our swimming classes. And that change happened early in the summer months, which kind of carried through to the fall. Made some personnel changes, hired someone to help us with that. And now our classes, the first couple months of this year are booking up pretty solid for swim classes, which will start to drive those revenues up. And again, it's just getting the right people in place. So we're real excited at the opportunities that we believe this season and this year's will bring for us. Road resurfacing, and I'm missing the first part. Road resurfacing started back in the fall, had to stop it because the plant shut down. With the weather, it was getting too cool. The asphalt plants shut down. Boston and Wood Duck 2, they're not up there, they were on the top, but Boston and Wood Duck 1 were the 2 areas that have been milled up and prepped for the the actual road resurfacing in the next week or two, and it's weather dependent. We've had more rain the last 2 months than we had last year. Has slowed us down just a little bit, but as soon as they get enough dry, they'll start paving those. And then once those two elements are finished, then they're going to go back to all the elements, both the ones in the fall and the ones that they're just finishing, and they'll do the edging on the roads and some of the driveways still aren't quite as tight as they should be, some areas around the mailboxes and those type of things. They'll go back and do the final touches there so we don't have quite the bumps and some of the drop-offs we had. Things that you all have to know with the road resurfacing, we had taken a couple years off, as you know, that the fuel tax money had dried up, so we didn't have a source for it. The board elected to use the casino money from last year. It had been an accumulation of almost 2 years to actually fund the roads. And we spent over $500,000 on these elements between fall and now on the roads, and it's a major rehab of the roads. So we're real excited about where that's taking us right now. Assessment. The other part that I've had call at, and then we'll start to open up for questions from you guys. I've had a lot of, seems to be a lot of questions out there about delinquents, and it was in the paper, and oh my gosh, it's the worst ever on delinquent assessments, and we're doing horrible, and I heard it last week from, I was at another gathering like this, and a lot of people were like, well, no, the numbers aren't. Let me shed some light. And after I did it the other day, I realized I need to continue to do this because people aren't getting, there's certain things that are being put out in the papers and comments that are about this much truth and this much not truth. I didn't say lie, not truth. Let me show you where the truth is. This year, this fiscal year that we're in, we billed $8 million worth of assessments. That's what went out. Okay, now I'm not talking about the new one that's going out next week or the end of this week. I'm talking about the current year we're in, $8 million. We have collected almost $7.8 million of those dollars. So $8 million billed, $7.8 million in, and that's with 2 months left in the year. So we have $281,000 of this year's assessment that we're still working to collect this year, and we're hoping to collect a portion of that before the end of the year. That's a 96.5% collection rate on what was billed. Anyone knows what's going on with the economy, knows how tough things are. At a 96.5% collection rate, that's absolutely incredible. How are you, sir? Incredible collection rate. When I was talking about this last week, I said a gentleman sitting over, no, not where Tom Stout is, that would ruin it for me. But he's right back there. And he was talking about, he said, well, I've been banking forever, and that's a great collection rate. So our collections are actually doing very, very well, despite what some people are saying, if you break it down to real numbers. Another statistic that I think was very important, I want to bring it up to hopefully help clarify some of this tonight. And again, you look at the glass half full, half empty. It was neat because I was using the road at the top, so I used the fuel gauge here. Notice it's on empty. Again, I'm real into showing the pictures. Currently, we have $951,000 in outstanding assessments. Sounds like a ton of money. And in the scheme of things, it's a lot of money. But in perspective, okay, look at it, that's not just assessments. That's attorney's fees, liens, interest, everything else that's been actually accumulated over a period of time. I'm going to give you another number. This is the one that's important when you're looking at statistics. Here's where I look at is mostly full. We billed $37 million in assessments. So when you start looking at $951,000, of which it's about $650 in actual assessments, okay? Then when you add interest and liens and everything else, that's where that other part builds up from the 951. But you're looking at under 700,000, about 650 is the number, in actual assessments, and we have $37 million billed in that same period of time. So if you think about that, now our ratios are even better. So for what we're billing, we're getting the majority of it back. Now, the other thing that's been in the paper a whole lot, there seems to be a lot of questions about getting calls about, well, we're not putting liens. And one of the papers, which I was surprised about recently, I was getting a lot of calls about one of the articles when they're talking about, well, why weren't we putting liens? Why weren't we taking legal action? Just so we can clarify, every year we've been putting liens on property that owes us the money. We have taken legal action each and every year. The fact one person keeps saying we weren't, it's just not factual. Every September or October, we've already sent multiple letters. We followed a process, which you're required to do, and we've told you. Trust me, I'm the first one who gets the calls when the notice gets put up on their doors. You can't do this, you're not like, we can do it. We're trying to protect you guys. And that's why I'm real, real proud that our assessment number is closer to 97.5% is what our collection ratio is right now. If you look at the industry about anything else where collections are, you're going to find we're way ahead of just about everybody else out there. Our efforts are working. So don't get confused by pieces or snapshots of information if you don't put it in the entire perspective. Our team's been doing a very, very good job on the collection side of the house. I'm real proud of where the numbers are shaping up. And anybody wants to come sit and talk about it, come look at it with me. I'll show them to you in detail. We're not hiding anything. Ruth Ann and her team does a spectacular job working with folks. The other thing that hasn't seemed to get out there, just about 50% of those folks, there's 365 people that are delinquent of some way in assessments, some type of account receivable. There's 65 that are 5,000 or more, okay? The other 300, okay, are in some state, but they're not for the 5,000. But of that total number, half of them are on payment plans. 50% of those that owe us money are on some sort of payment plan and actively working the plan. Couldn't say that a couple of years ago. So our efforts are working out despite the failing economy, despite the fact that it was tough for a number of years. Folks are trying. So I just want to make sure I put the accurate information out there, not just the bits and pieces. So we're not doing X, Y, or Z. We are. We're working real hard at that. And we're working hard to protect those folks that are in those, tough conditions, and they're still trying to make it right. Also understand we're all protected as homeowners here by having a lien on the property. When something does happen, foreclosure or something, maybe they pay. Our hopes is that they get caught up. But if they don't, we're protected because we're in lien position on the property. So we may not get it today, but a year or two or three, when the disposition on the property changes, guess what? We get paid. And I get the calls saying, I'd like to negotiate out. I'm going to foreclosure. I'd like to do a short sale, and I'd like to pay you half up. No, you owe us the whole thing, because if I started accepting half, all of us pay for that. And guess what? We get paid the full amount because we're in lien position. So we are doing it right, folks. Don't be misguided when you hear bits and pieces. If you want to see our entire program, set up a time. Come sit with me. I'll go over our entire collection program. Okay? It's your turn. I'll try to give you the questions I've had or the comments. So I'll open the floor to answer anything I can answer. Yes, sir.
Any thought with regard to moving any of the yacht club services to the country club?
When?
Once you shut down the yacht club through you?
Well, I don't know if you noticed, we did that this winter when we closed down January, February, for Friday nights and a little bit on Saturday. It was successful. Part of the challenge we had, and we are looking at it, is the facilities at the country club, the kitchen facilities. A lot of that equipment is either broken and not able to be reserved, able to fix it without a terrible expense. So one of the things I am looking at right now is what we were going to do is take most of the equipment out of the yacht club, the good useful equipment, and put it in the new club. One of the things I'm trying to do a cost analysis for right now is, in lieu of doing that, maybe when we do the shutdown, that we take that equipment, we take the stuff that's not working at the country club, the big burners, and in the country club, over the years, they've let the coolers that are under some of the cooktops on, they're all refrigerated, have just fallen apart over the years. They just decayed and they're years old. Maybe taking the working parts of our kitchen and put it there, and then put everything new in the new yacht club. Again, there's an expense to it. I'm trying to do the cost analysis. Obviously, the board has to make that final decision. But yes, our goal, we had a pretty good test run this year for the January, February, and people did start going. The challenge we had this year, everything, the unintended consequences, because we didn't have the full cooking, the full kitchen, because we didn't pick up our entire staff and plug in there. They were still working on, it was more of a, I don't want to say grab and go, but it was more of a social atmosphere. and folks got a little upset with us when they showed up expecting to have a full dinner, something more aligned with the yacht club. They were never geared up for it, nor did they have the facility for it. So when we do the transition, and we'll know ahead of time basically what the board decides, if we move stuff over and turn that into a full working kitchen, then we'll be able to take more advantage of it. Sorry to give you a long answer, but we are looking at a number of pieces on that. Yes, sir.
On the roads issue,
Yes.
how is it determined which roads are resurfaced?
How is it determined on which roads were resurfaced? We actually had an engineer go out, look at all 70-plus miles of roads, and rate those roads by street, by area. Compiled the report, and they were in conditions of poor conditions to good conditions, and everywhere in between, so they got a rating. So what we did was, and you notice that it kind of bounced around a little bit, the attention was put on the roads in the worst condition, and based on my budget, we spent as much as we could, and actually the board gave me a little more to spend, which was great. We were able to get a little more finished. We tackled the ones that were in the poorest condition at the time based on the engineer rating. Okay, good question. Yes, ma'am.
But in respect to that,
Yes, ma'am.
it's all new surfacing. The water lines have been busting over in the pines all over the place.
Mhm.
Have the water lines on those resurfaced roads been addressed? Are they new lines? or are they-
Yes and no. Here's where our struggle comes in with the water lines. They're county, they're not ours. We don't maintain the water lines. The county does. Where the road cuts and over the years. Part of it, we delayed, we wanted to start our project in the fall sooner so we could get it all completed in the fall. Working with the county, seeing what roads they were going to be working on with the cuts, we waited to let them get ahead of us on many of those before we started the project. That's why the project got delayed and had to roll, the split in the wintertime. We were actually supposed to, for the contract, be done by November. But I allowed them to wait because we tried to work with the county, so any that they were putting in the pipe, to let them get ahead of us before we did the roads. I'm not going to tell you that at one point we just had to make decisions just to go ahead and do it because we didn't know how much longer. Some got finished, some didn't. Unfortunately, they're county to maintain. You have a 40-year-old, community here with pipes that have been in a long time. That's going to continue to be a strain for years to come with the cuts and the fixing. The counties I think we have a good, and I think it's improved a little bit with the relationship we've had getting them back out. And we've also tried to do a little more patching and stuff when we have real big issues. Something we did last week, who was it? Gentleman called me about where they just ground up the road. This wasn't the county, it was when the contractor was, but there was a pretty big dip, and because we knew they weren't going to be able to get back to it quick enough, we put crush and running. So a lot of times if you're having a big issue, call us. If there's something we can do at least temporary to make it better, we will. It's just not always the case with the cuts because of the county's supposed to replace that. The other thing that gets us a little jammed up when they do the road cuts, the county doesn't immediately get the asphalt company out to do it. They wait till they have a number of them, and then they do a big contract, and they come and pave all of them at once. That creates a little bit of an issue when you got a community of our size. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Comments on one. I think it would be important for us as a group to have a paper comment on whatever slides you're presenting during the meetings. I think you should provide a paper copy so that we have that to take home with us. And I have several concerns about budget and expenses that have been going on for the last few months. I'm concerned about, and I'm sure other people share that concern, the amount of money that was spent to investigate Marty Clark for alleged transgressions against board decorum that cost the association $11,000+. And the conduct, apparently, regulating board members that you had investigated on had been repealed by an earlier board of directors. So if that, in fact, is true, I would say before we spend that kind of money to investigate board members, we should be checking what has gone on historically and what is current in the bylaws. Number 2 is captioned Ocean Pines Progress Reserve Wars. Directors split over assessments needed to fund big ticket projects. A lot of the directors felt that our reserve fund is at its highest rate, or will be in 14 months, the highest rate that it's been in 45 years. Knowing that people are strapped economically and there are financial issues going on in this community, as you cited, and in larger communities, why wasn't there more of an agreement amongst your group of directors to lower this assessment fee if you have such a large reserve fund or anticipated large reserve fund? Number two, and I'm sorry to hit you with all
No, you're
this,
right.
but I haven't been in the community that long and I have some grave concerns. Two, yacht club project being so far over the initial budget amount. Why was that not put out for multiple bids? And I really believe that in referendum and HOA associations, you do have to put out to HOA referendum if you're a certain percent over whatever the anticipated project is. Number four, if you're taping.
Am I going to answer all of these?
Yeah, number four, if you're
Is that a
taping, I'll
question?
remind you if you forgot.
What's
Number
that
four, if
question?
you're going to tape a meeting, you may need to check with your council. You may need to get releases from everybody who comes in the door.
Okay. All right, I'll start with that one, and I'll go back. And if I miss one, please,
Okay,
I'll be
thank
happy
you.
to.
Thank you.
One is we tape all our meetings, our board meetings. We never, when we first started doing it 2 years ago, thought this is a public meeting, it's public access, so getting releases wasn't necessary. If there's a lawyer that wants to argue the other way, Joe Moore's our attorney, I'd say have at it there. I wasn't being smug there, I'm saying this is a public meeting. Our intent is transparency, and we started 2 years ago, video, we bought some new equipment, everything else, because it's not just you folks. We have 35 to 40% of our owners that don't live here. Well, they can take a look on 78, they can watch it streaming, or they can watch it streaming on the net, so part of that is just transparency. Referendum amount on the yacht club, if I give them out of order, just stop me. Referendum, we did go to referendum for $4.3 million. It was 2-to-1, our largest results ever. About 68% approved, which was a huge number, something we had never seen before, to move forward with that project. So overwhelming support for it. So we felt very good. The unbudgeted portion is directly related to Hurricane Sandy. When the hurricane came, elevated, cracked the pool. So that relates to approximately $952,000, plus or minus a few, for that side of the building. When that occurred, the board actually looked a whole lot about whether we go back to bid it out or what to do. Because of the type of work and the amount of work and the bulkhead work that has to be done there. I don't know if you've looked at the plans real close, but the intent with the new club, and I really think this is part of what was very pleasing to the folks when we were looking at the referendum. When you get out of the parking lot, so you walk straight through the building all the way to the back, it's all one level. There's not a whole lot of steps. And with a community that has a very mixed population, not having a lot of steps up and down in different areas seemed to be extremely beneficial. Well, to do that, you've got to do a lot of bulkhead work on the water side, not the typical bulkhead you're thinking about on the water level, but bulkhead where all the pavers, all the outdoor patio, which is going to be slightly higher than the dock that runs there. So if we had bid out that portion of the work, we could have easily had a mismatch in the major structure, the components being the bulkhead work, the cap work, those type of elements. So what we decided to do, we being the board, had made the decision, we did bid out the pool portion of it. Okay, but for the structure and the bulkhead work to make sure it matched, make sure the pavers, everything matched from one part of the facility all across to the back, it made sense to stick with the same contractor. Board debated it, a lot of talk about it. The majority of the board firmly believed that was the right answer, and I've got to tell you, I completely support that. I totally believe that was the right answer.
Why not multiple bids, and why not put that up for
Well,
referendum, since that was so much over budget,
Well,
the original
well,
budget?
the 4.3 went to referendum and passed. $1 million is not over budget. It's a separate project, so we have two different elements there. So the board had approved. The board could go up to $1.6 million approximately. I forget the percentage, but it's so much of the annual assessment, but it's approximately $1.6 million without referendum. So this was under $1 million. So the board had a right to do it. Now, if you combine the two, you're right. You could look at it and go, there's 5.3 is an issue. Well, this was an act of God, Hurricane Sandy. The board made a decision. And again, I support it. I think it was the right decision. Again, you're welcome to speak to the board about it. Come to the board meeting and bring it up. there was one more, and then the one with Mr. Clark. The first one about the investigation, Mr. Clark, I have no comment. I can't comment. My position wouldn't allow me to. Maybe one day, if I'm ever out of here, I'll be happy to comment. Wouldn't be appropriate today.
We don't want you to comment on
Okay.
that. You were just stating if there is a question about decorum, why not look at what is there, what is existing, and it says there is some issue about the behavior in question having been repealed by a prior board of directors. So if you in fact look at that before you go out legally, then maybe there is
No, you know what?
some cost savings.
Your point is valid, but what's missing, again, remember I told you you're getting snippets of the paper. I'll give you the bigger picture. I know the board tried to work close with council before they took any step, and they tried to do it the right way. I can tell you that factually. Okay, I know they did. I know that hours and hours they spent to make the decision to get where they were. So, again, you can talk directly with the board about it. Did I answer all of your questions? Maybe not what you wanted to hear, but did I answer them all?
Well, the reserve
Oh, reserves.
issues on reserve.
Yeah, reserves, nothing. This one, if you look, numbers. We have $36 million in assets. How much is the right amount of reserves to have for those assets? Question mark. Look at, we're about to spend 5.3 road resurfacing, $500 million. We spent 1.6 on golf. If you put all that together, we actually drive one of our major reserve accounts in a deficit until 2018. So if we're going to drive in a deficit, I'd argue that are we really funding the reserves? Do we have enough in reserve? The other thing which is very, very interesting, I've shared this story with some others, I have a strong financial background, banking, 20 plus years. I had a very, very strong belief in borrow, borrow, borrow. A lot of what I did bank, borrow money, we'll fund it, blah, blah, and I like the borrowing factor, get the tax shelter and all these other things. One of the things in this role, which has been very enlightening for me, something years ago the association decided to do as a strategy. And I got to tell you, as I've learned and gone through, when you start looking at all the components, it's pretty good. Putting buckets together, and I joke, and I try to keep it in simple terms, not get on the finance terms where it gets confusing, but basically, a lot of people remember the old passbook savings accounts, where I know my grandmother and grandfather had them, put the money away. When I first got in banking, First Shore Federal, local savings and loan, passbook savings, what the heck is it? Every week, someone would come in, and it was typically the more mature in age, because that was their generation. Put $1 away, put $1 away. So when they went to buy something, they had the funds to do it, as opposed to borrowing. I'm in banking, I'm saying lend it, don't worry about it. Well, here, what folks that were really wise in years past said, let's start those savings type of accounts, put money away, so when we need it, we've got these savings accounts to pay for these things. It's kind of how the reserves work right now. And I've got to tell you, I think it's overall very, very good strategy. When you look at it, you break the components. It gets sensationalized in the paper. You'll get one person's comment. It'll be controversial against another. And you get lost in all the hype and don't look at the details. We're underfunded based on all of our assets. Our funding plan right now with $1 million, and it's $1 million a year, $1.1 million is what it is now. So there's no mix on that. $1.1 million with a 5-year funding solution. Which I got to tell you, 6 years ago, the folks put a real good plan together, and the board's accepted it the last 5 years, putting X amount each year. Now we're on the 5th year; it's about $1.1 million a year. That's going to fund these major capital assets that are in great need over the next few years. So we do run into a deficit in the major capital for the reserves. It'll catch back up 2018, and again, we have other assets that we're looking at. Part of the thing the board has challenged me to do by June is put a capital improvement plan together for all of our assets. To look at them all, kind of stack them. You've heard the term rack and stack. That's what we use in military terms of looking at all our assets, putting them in order, and then putting it out there to see how much we really may need in the future. So reserves is something, again, I looked at I try to get to the simple term of passbook savings, and it seems to work. You're not going to let the reserves go, are you?
I'm not even going to comment on it.
This is Pete Gomsek, past board member, past treasurer, current assistant treasurer of the association.
Thank you, Pete Gomsek. One comment I do want to offer with respect to her question about the pool and the $4.3 million for the yacht club project, and you raised the question about over budget because of the pool. Bob mentioned the hurricane, but what Bob didn't mention is that pool project was recognized a couple of years ago before any decisions have been made about what to do with the yacht club per
per se. And in fact, I was on the board at the time, we put $600,000 as capital expenditure to come out of the replacement fund in last year's budget to fund the decking and some pool equipment, pump room. All of that was approved by the board at a $600,000 level. The board similarly deferred that project because of the uncertainty about what would happen with the yacht club building itself. We thought it was better to not spend that $600,000 at that time, even though it had been approved, until after we knew what precisely was going to be done with the yacht club. Fast forward, the yacht club, the decision was made to recommend to the membership. The membership approved by 68% the new yacht club building. So the yacht club, the $600,000 project was still unspent in the budget. Now comes along Hurricane Sandy. The 600 becomes a greater amount, closer to $1 million. So it's not a new project. It's not an extension of the Yacht Club 4.3. It was a separate and distinct project identified long before a solution for the Yacht Club building itself was identified. Then Hurricane Sandy upped it to 950 or whatever it is, Bob. That's the background for that. Okay?
Thank you for that. Yes, ma'am.
We're in the pool. Those of us who like to spend the summer in that pool, what's the chances of getting it open by summer? Now tell us the truth.
The truth is, it'll be open this summer. It'll be open early summer. We're doing everything we can to do it by Memorial Day. I think there's a shot. I think realistically, within a couple weeks of that is probably a good time frame. I can tell you that the contractor, both contractors, Parish Pools, Harkins are aware of it. I talk to them almost daily about it. We need to get that pool open and the fence to have it open. I think we're going to great. I think that side's going to be spectacular. Mid-June, it's going to look really nice on that side. The water will be a little warmer too.
Well, I think a lot of people, it isn't just recreation, it's healthy.
Oh,
The exercise
agreed.
and so forth.
And for those that use it all the time, I don't know if you know, we're going from this 10-foot deck to a 6-foot on the deep end because we don't dive in the pool. When the pool was originally constructed, it was a diving well. We don't do that anymore, and the reason I bring it up, or we don't dive anymore, and the reason we went to a little shorter, better on insurance, a little cheaper for our insurance. Secondly, the water will stay warmer longer because you're not deeping that, trying to, with the sun, heating the deep well.
And you won't have the drunks dive bombing.
No comment. No comment.
We've seen it.
Oh, no, understood. Other questions?
Just a quick question about the bridges and ocean ponds.
Yes.
Who actually is responsible for the maintenance and the cost of that?
Yeah, good question. We've looked at the bridges for a couple of years. There was an agreement a few years back where we being the Ocean Pine Association, handle the maintenance. The county replaces the bridges. There was some confusion on that recently. We got a whole lot of detail with it. I explained this at the last board meeting where we kind of broke it down and we got the components. Per the agreement, we have the maintenance requirements. Part of the challenge we have with that, the bridges are turned over to the county a few years ago. Okay, they were ours to maintain, they were turned over. Part of the turnover agreement, they'll replace them, we maintain them. Now, when it gets turned over to the county inventory, the county then starts doing the engineering reports on the bridges, the inspections through the engineers. So we have a couple different engineering reports. We start looking at those, and it's a bit confusing when you read them, not only to me, but to a number of others that look down, what maintenance really needs to be required. So we reach out to the engineering firm that did the most recent study, and we can't get clarity on what it's going to take to fix the bridge to whatever their inspection level was. So now we had to go back to the county, and the county's going to help us. So look, we need some help. Your engineer, because they hired us, we didn't, can't give us clearly how to fix these or how to maintain them and at what level. They only say it has to be fixed, but with no assistance. Typically, engineering will say you can use this, you can do that. They can refer you to a company that knows how to do it. We haven't had that luck so far, but we are working through that. So we have a plan together to do the repair work that we think needs to be done. We just want to make sure we coordinate that with the county officials as well as with the engineering firm, because I don't want to spend money, do something, and they come back there. We didn't quite mean that. We needed this. I want clarity before we do it. that help?
Good question, yeah.
Yeah, kind of, that one got a little sticky quick too. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Did you say the deck around the pool was gonna be larger?
Did I say that? I did not say that.
No, so it's gonna be the same size it was before Hurricane Sandy?
Yes, ma'am.
So that means no additional umbrella tables, is that correct?
That's correct. There's a seating capacity issue when you're looking at it, and you had to look at the entire project. I don't know if you remember back in November when we were submitting for everything, we had to look at the project, including the Mumford's Landing pool, the yacht club pool, at that time the yacht club, the Mumford's Landing, and the yacht club itself, and do a really unique calculation on the number of seats, both upstairs and down, pool deck, outdoor deck, pool with the Mumfords, add it all up into a big formula. So expanding that deck was not at all possible based on the requirements. Trust me, it would have been a lot bigger on the deck if I could have got away with it. Just can't. This is parking requirements. Good question, huh? Anybody else? So far, I don't know if I'm answering them the way you want
As
to
long
hear
as
them.
we're on the pool deck thing, the flooring is not gonna be this splintery wood, is that correct?
It is. We're putting the same wood back.
Just to see how many splinters you could get.
No. When we were initially bidding it, we did the stamped concrete, but over time, even when you put the rough surface, the granular surface in, over time, with a lot of walking and a lot of cleaning, that wears down and it becomes very, very slick. So in lieu of that, what we decided to do was work with Harkins, and we're going to put pavers, exactly like we're doing with the outside deck around the yacht club. We're just taking it all the way through. So we'll put pavers, you'll get the same effect, and pavers will keep their porous part so they won't get slick. And if we ever have something crack, we replace the pavers in that section.
Isn't that gonna be hard on your bare feet?
So it's a concrete deck. I mean, walk around and swim a racket club.
Well,
Flip-flops.
we got
Splinters.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
maybe they could put that plastic cover over again.
Flip-flops. I'll sell you flip-flops. Teresa, flip-flops. Splitter. No. It'll be, I understand what you know, I'm teasing. I understand. Yes,
Another
sir.
moneymaker.
In the absence of other questions, I thought I might not disappoint you and mention something about reserves.
Oh, no. That's his ballywick.
No, the lady has been reading articles in the paper. I just want to make a couple points. We do not have rainy day fund reserve accounts. Okay, when Bob talked about the passbook savings account and the founders of Ocean Pines and the early boards, what they did was this. In order to fund the capital investments needed in this community over the ensuing decades, what they decided to do was to take depreciation expense and put it in that savings account that Bob's talking about each year. So we funded depreciation. People say, what's policy? Policy is to fund depreciation. That is to charge each member each year their proportionate share of all of our expenses. The depreciation expense you pay and I pay, and we pay it into that fund. And that fund is called the Replacement Reserve Fund. And its sole purpose is to replace the assets that will have to be replaced. Some need to be replaced in 10 years, some in 20 years, some in 40 years. So we don't have this nebulous reserve fund that you may think we do. It's very calculated for 40 years now almost of putting depreciation expense into a kitty savings book called Replacement Reserve Fund. And then when it's time to build this building, for example, or to replace that police car, we take the money out of that fund with no impact on your assessment in the year it's taken out. It does impact your assessment the year we charge you your share, and only your share, ma'am, of depreciation expense, put it in that account, and then take it out when the appropriate time comes. Okay?
Oh, that's understandable, but what is indicated in the papers is the reserve fund is at a 45, in 14 months will be at a 45-year high.
The papers sometimes don't go out of their way to enlighten people.
Well,
I've
that's
noticed
pretty
that.
enlightening.
How about Social Security? Do we have enough in Social Security funds?
All
Some might say in 2 years.
You're going to
next 2
hit
years.
debate reserves in 6 weeks, I can tell you that. He's our reserve specialist.
Some people read the papers and they get the impression they do.
No, I agree. Other questions? Anything else for me? No? Kind of an easy crowd tonight. Thank you all for being being here. I appreciate it very, very much. You had to say something.
Well, nobody else said.